You know that moment when your entire world shifts in a single heartbeat? When the ground beneath you cracks open and everything you thought was real suddenly becomes a beautiful, painful lie. This is that story. And if you've ever trusted someone with your whole heart, only to discover they were living a double life, then you already know this pain. You already understand that moment when the person you loved most becomes a stranger right before your eyes. It was a Tuesday. Ordinary. The kind of day that blends into all the others. The kind of day you don't remember until it becomes the day you can never forget. The morning sun filtered through our kitchen curtains, the ones I'd painstakingly chosen after months of searching for the perfect shade of cream, painting golden patterns across the countertops where I'd packed lunches for our daughters just hours earlier. The scent of coffee and toast lingered in the air, that familiar comfort of 1,000 mornings just like this one. I remember standing at that counter, my hands wrapped around my favorite mug, the one with "World's Best Mom," painted in clumsy kindergarten letters, and feeling content. Not ecstatic, not overjoyed, just that steady, warm contentment that comes from building a life you love. From creating a home filled with laughter and little rituals, and the quiet understanding that comes from 12 years of marriage. My husband Mark's phone sat on the charger where it always did. That sleek black device that held his business, his friends, his life. Our life. I walked past it without a second thought, because trust isn't something you question every day. Trust is the air you breathe, invisible, essential, until suddenly it's poisoned. The first notification lit up the screen. A simple buzz. A flicker of light. I wouldn't have even noticed if I hadn't been reaching for my own phone right beside it. But destiny has a way of placing you exactly where you need to be, even when you don't know you're standing at the edge of a cliff. "Good morning, my love. Can't stop thinking about last night." The words burned into my retinas before my brain could process them. My love. Last night. Mark was supposed to be at a business dinner. I'd ironed his blue shirt myself, the one that brought out the specks of gold in his eyes, or what I'd always thought were specks of gold, but now wondered if I'd imagined that too. I'd kissed him goodbye at 6 p.m., our daughters clinging to his legs, begging him to bring home dessert from that fancy restaurant downtown. My hands began to tremble, the World's Best Mom mug suddenly feeling heavy and ironic in my grasp. This had to be a mistake. A wrong number. A joke from one of his college friends who still called each other ridiculous pet names. My mind raced through reasonable explanations even as my soul knew the terrible truth. The phone buzzed again. Meeting you in the supply closet was dangerous but so worth it. And there it was. The second blow. The one that shattered the foundation of my 12-year marriage. The supply closet. I knew exactly which one she meant. The one on the 3rd floor of his office building where he'd taken me once to steal a kiss during his late nights. Our secret spot. Our little game. The place where he'd whispered that he loved me more than anything in this world. Now it belonged to someone else. Now our sacred space was just a space. I sank onto the kitchen stool, the cold marble countertop biting into my elbows. The world narrowed to that glowing screen and the devastating words blooming across it. Each new message was another crack in the portrait of our life together. The family photos on our walls, the anniversary trips, the whispered promises in the dark. The way he still reached for my hand in his sleep. "Does she suspect anything?" the next message asked. And then the reply from my husband, the man who held my hand through 2 labors, who cried when our daughters were born, who built a life with me brick by careful brick. "She's clueless. Always is. Clueless." The word echoed in the silent kitchen, bouncing off the stainless steel appliances we'd chosen together. The pottery barn plates we'd registered for. The fruit bowl filled with apples from the farmer's market he'd taken me to just last weekend. Clueless. While I was planning our anniversary trip to the same beach where we'd gotten engaged. Clueless. While I was worrying about his stress levels, massaging his shoulders after long days, making his favorite meals because I noticed he'd been looking tired. Clueless. While I was loving him with every fiber of my being, while I was building my world around him and our family, while I was investing every ounce of my energy into making our house a home. The tears came then. Not the dramatic, movie-style crying, but the silent, suffocating kind that steals your breath and leaves you hollow. Each droplet contained a memory, our wedding day, the way he looked at me across the altar as I walked toward him in my mother's vintage dress, The night we stayed up until 3 a.m. painting the nursery the softest shade of yellow because we couldn't agree on pink or blue, the way he always reached for my hand in the car, his thumb tracing circles on my palm during entire road trips. How many times had I stood in this very kitchen, smiling as he kissed me goodbye, his hand lingering on my waist in that way that still made my heart flutter after all these years. How many nights had I waited up for him, worrying when he was late, only to feel relief wash over me when I heard his key in the lock. How many sacrifices had I made for his career, for our family, for this beautiful lie we called a marriage. The job opportunities I'd turned down because they required travel. The friends I'd slowly lost touch with because family life kept me so busy. The books I wanted to write, the businesses I wanted to start, the woman I wanted to become, all postponed for someday, when the kids were older, when life was less hectic, when we had more money. I scrolled back through weeks of messages, my fingers shaking so badly I could barely navigate the screen. There were photos, her in his office chair, leaning back with a triumphant smile as if she'd won a prize, her wearing his jacket, the same navy blazer I'd given him for our 10th anniversary, her smiling with the familiarity of someone who belonged in spaces I'd never even visited. There were dates that lined up with our anniversary, with my birthday, with the night our youngest daughter had her school play and he'd arrived late, breathless with excuses about traffic and last-minute meetings. The details unfolded like a horror story written in the mundane language of text messages. Their inside jokes about coworkers I'd never met. Their plans for a weekend getaway to the same cabin where we'd spent our honeymoon. The cabin with the fireplace we'd made love in front of. The lake we'd swum in under the stars. The bed where we'd whispered our dreams for the future. Their discussions about me, my habits, my flaws, my trust. She's so predictable, he'd written just last week. Never checks my phone, never questions my late nights. It's almost too easy. Too easy. Because I loved him. Because I believed in the vows we'd exchanged before God and our families. Because when you build a life with someone, when you create human beings together, when you weather storms and celebrate triumphs side by side, you don't constantly search for the cracks in the foundation. You assume the foundation is solid because you built it together with care and intention and love. The back door slammed open and my daughters burst in, their backpacks swinging, their voices bright with the energy of schoolyard adventures and secrets shared with friends. "Mommy, we're home." I wiped my tears with shaking hands, forcing a smile onto my face that felt like a grotesque mask. The ordinary miracle of motherhood, the ability to conceal earthquakes behind simple gestures, to swallow your own devastation so your children can keep their innocence for one more day. I helped them with their backpacks, asked about their math tests and playground games, poured their apple juice into the cups with the cartoon characters they loved, all while my world crumbled around me, while the very air I breathed felt thick with betrayal. When Mark came home that evening, he kissed my cheek like he always did, his lips brushing against my skin in that familiar way that had always felt like home. Now his lips felt like betrayal. His touch felt like poison. He smelled faintly of her perfume, something floral and expensive, nothing like the vanilla scent I'd worn since we were teenagers, since he told me it reminded him of baking cookies at his grandmother's house. "You okay, baby?" he asked, his forehead creased with what I'd always thought was concern but now recognized as calculation. How many times had I mistaken his guilt for caring? How many lies had I swallowed whole because I couldn't imagine they were lies? "Just tired," I whispered, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. Tired. What an inadequate word for the bone-deep exhaustion of discovering your entire life has been a carefully constructed fiction. He squeezed my shoulder, his wedding band glinting in the evening light, that band I'd placed on his finger with such hope, with tears of joy streaming down my face as our families cheered. That symbol of forever that now felt like a mockery, like a brand marking me as a fool. That night, lying beside him in our bed, the bed we'd chosen together, the mattress we'd tested in the store while laughing about how serious people looked when mattress shopping, I stared at the ceiling and traced the outline of our life together in the shadows dancing across it. The early struggles when we couldn't afford furniture, sitting on cardboard boxes eating Chinese takeout and dreaming about the future. The joy of buying our first home. How we'd popped champagne in the empty living room and danced to no music at all. The terrifying beauty of becoming parents, the way he'd held my hand through contractions, the wonder in his eyes when he first held our daughters. The slow, steady building of a shared history, the inside jokes and traditions and memories that I thought were the pillars of our life. Had it all been a lie? Or just the recent years? When did I become the clueless wife while he lived a double life with a woman whose name I now knew, Chloe? When did our marriage become the backdrop for his secret romance? Was it when I gained weight after having the kids? When I started focusing more on parenting than on being his lover? When my career took a backseat to his? Or was it never about me at all? Was this just who he was, a man capable of building a beautiful life while simultaneously tearing it down? I thought about confronting him right then, about screaming and throwing things and demanding answers, about shaking him awake and forcing him to look me in the eye and explain how he could do this to us, to our family, to me. But something deeper, wiser told me to wait, to understand, to gather evidence not just for the inevitable confrontation, but for myself, to prove that I wasn't crazy, that the intuition I'd been ignoring for months had been right all along. That gut feeling I dismissed as paranoia, the little inconsistencies I'd explained away, the distance I'd blamed on stress, they were all real. They were all pieces of this devastating puzzle. So I began my own double life. The devoted wife by day, the detective by night. The woman who still made his favorite meals, who still asked about his day, who still laughed at his jokes, all while secretly documenting everything. I created secret email accounts with passwords he would never guess. I learned how to check phone records, how to trace digital footprints, how to see the invisible threads connecting his two worlds. I became a student of my own destruction, and in doing so, I started finding pieces of myself I'd lost along the way. The strong woman who'd built a successful career before becoming a mother. The fierce protector who'd fight to the death for her children. The valuable, worthy human being who deserved more than being someone's clueless wife. The person I was before I became Mark's wife, before I became someone's mother, before I started shrinking myself to fit into the spaces others had created for me. This journey, this painful, terrifying, transformative journey, is what I want to share with you over these coming chapters. Because if you're reading this and your world is crumbling too, if you're lying awake beside someone you no longer recognize, if you're questioning your own reality, I want you to know something. You are not alone. You are not clueless. You are a woman waking up to the truth, and that awakening, though brutal, is the beginning of your rebirth. Over the next weeks, I uncovered layer after layer of deception. There wasn't just one Chloe. There were others before her. Women whose names and faces blurred together in a parade of betrayal. There weren't just stolen moments in supply closets. There were entire relationships I knew nothing about, weekend trips disguised as business conferences, family events he'd missed because he was with them. There wasn't just the double life I'd discovered. There was a triple life, a quadruple life, a house of cards built on my trust, on our family's stability, on everything I held sacred. But here's what they don't tell you about discovering betrayal. The same fire that burns your world to the ground also forges the steel in your soul. The same pain that shatters your heart also clears space for something new, something stronger, something truly your own. The same tears that feel like they'll never stop also wash away the illusions, leaving you with the stark, beautiful truth of who you are and what you deserve. I remember the moment I decided to stop collecting evidence and start reclaiming my life. It was 3 a.m., and I was sitting in my car outside Chloe's apartment building. A modern high-rise with sleek lines and expensive cars in the parking lot. I'd followed Mark there, watched him kiss her in the doorway with the same easy familiarity he once reserved for me. And instead of the crushing pain I expected, I felt something else. A quiet, steady certainty that started in my core and spread through my entire being. This wasn't about me not being enough. This wasn't about my flaws or my failures or the extra pounds I carried or the gray hairs I carefully covered. This was about his choices, his character, his brokenness. And I refused to let his brokenness define my worth. I refused to let his lies become my truth. The drive home that night felt different. The streets I'd driven thousands of times, the route to the grocery store, to the kids' school, to our favorite weekend brunch spot, they all looked new, as if I were seeing them through different eyes. The woman in the rearview mirror, the one with tired eyes and a determined set to her jaw, was someone I was just beginning to know. Someone who had survived the unsurvivable. Someone who was about to become the hero of her own story. When I walked back into our home, the home I'd chosen every curtain for, every piece of furniture, every memory, I didn't feel like a victim anymore. I felt like a warrior preparing for battle, not against him but for myself, for my daughters, for the life we deserved, for the truth we needed, for the future we would build from the ashes of this beautiful lie. The confrontation came on a rainy Thursday. I chose Thursday because it felt appropriately ordinary for such an extraordinary moment. I'd planned everything, the documents neatly organized in a folder, the girls safely at my mother's house for the weekend, the lawyer on standby, my bags already packed and hidden in the trunk of my car. When Mark came home, shaking rain from his coat and complaining about traffic, I was waiting at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd first seen that devastating notification weeks earlier. "It's over," I said, my voice steady in a way that surprised even me. "I know everything." The shock on his face, the denials, the anger, the begging. It all unfolded like a scene from a movie I'd already watched in my mind 100 times. But here's what mattered. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't get down in the mud with him. I stood firm in my truth, in the evidence I'd gathered, in the worth I'd rediscovered in the darkest moments of this journey. "You'll never find anyone who loves you like I did," he said finally, desperation cracking his voice as he realized I wasn't backing down, that I had proof of everything, that the game was finally over. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I smiled. A real, genuine smile that came from somewhere deep inside me, from the woman I'd forgotten existed. "That's the point," I said softly, my voice clear and strong in the quiet kitchen. "I deserve someone who loves me better." Leaving was messy. The legal battles, the divided assets, the explaining to family and friends, the heartbreaking conversations with our daughters. None of it was easy. There were days I wanted to crawl back into the beautiful lie because the painful truth felt too heavy to carry. There were moments I missed the life I thought I had, the future I'd planned, the man I thought he was. But each difficult step, signing the divorce papers, packing up the home we'd built together, explaining to my daughters that mommy and daddy wouldn't be living together anymore. Each one felt like reclaiming a piece of myself I'd surrendered years ago. Each tear shed was watering the seeds of my new life. Each moment of courage was building muscles I didn't know I had. The first night in my new apartment, sleeping on a mattress on the floor with my daughters curled beside me in a nest of blankets and pillows, I felt more peace than I had in years. The security of knowing I was living in my truth, no matter how painful, was more comforting than the beautiful lie of my marriage. The simplicity of that empty space, waiting to be filled with our new life, felt more like home than our perfectly decorated house ever had. Now, 6 months later, I look in the mirror and see a different woman. The same dark brown skin, the same features my mother passed down to me, the same smile lines around my mouth, but behind the eyes there's a fire that wasn't there before. A wisdom earned through pain, a strength forged in betrayal, a light that no amount of darkness could extinguish. My daughters are thriving in ways that continue to amaze me. They see their mother standing on her own 2 feet, building a new life from scratch, choosing happiness every single day even when it's hard. They're learning lessons I wish they never had to learn, but they're also learning that it's better to come from a broken home than to live in one. They're discovering their own strength through watching mine. And that is a gift I never planned to give them but now cherish deeply. And me? I'm rediscovering passions I'd abandoned for the sake of my marriage. Reconnecting with friends I'd neglected because family life kept me so busy. Building a career on my own terms, not as someone's wife but as my own person. Learning that my worth was never tied to my relationship status, to being someone's wife, to fitting into anyone's idea of who I should be. My value comes from within, from my strength, my resilience, my capacity to love even after being broken, my ability to rise from ashes I didn't create. To every woman reading this who's in the thick of it, who's just discovered the messages, who's lying awake beside someone she no longer recognizes, who's questioning her own reality, who's wondering if she'll ever be able to trust again. Hear me and hear me clearly. You are stronger than you know. This pain is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of a new chapter, one where you get to write every word, where you get to decide what happens next, where you become the author of your own life instead of just a character in someone else's. The journey from clueless wife to empowered woman isn't easy. There are days the grief washes over you like a tidal wave, moments you miss the life you thought you had, nights you wonder if you'll ever feel whole again. But then there are the other moments, the first time you make a decision without consulting anyone else and it turns out perfectly, the first time you realize you've gone a whole day without crying, the first time you look in the mirror and genuinely like the woman staring back at you, the first time you experience a joy that is entirely your own, untainted by someone else's lies. Those moments add up. They build a new foundation, stronger than the old one because it's built on truth rather than illusion. They create a life that is authentically, unapologetically yours. Not what you think you should be, not who someone else wants you to be, but who you truly are, in all your messy, beautiful, powerful glory. So take that first step, whatever it looks like for you. Save the evidence. Call the lawyer. Tell a trusted friend. Start that secret savings account. Make the plan. Believe in the woman you're becoming, even when you can't see her clearly yet. Trust that she's there waiting for you to find her. The strong, glorious, powerful woman who is always there beneath the roles and expectations, beneath the compromises and accommodations, beneath the love you poured into others while forgetting to save some for yourself. She's there, waiting for you. The woman who doesn't need anyone to complete her. The woman who is already whole, already enough, already worthy of love and respect and honesty. The woman who is about to discover that the best chapters of her life are still unwritten, and she holds the pen. And to my beautiful community, my sisters in this journey, thank you for being here, for sharing your stories in the comments, for supporting each other, for reminding me every day that we're never alone in our struggles. We are a family bound not by blood, but by understanding, by resilience, by the unshakable knowledge that together we can survive anything. We can overcome everything. We can become more than we ever imagined possible. If this story resonated with you, if you're walking this path right now, I want you to type, "I am worthy" in the comments. Let's create a wave of affirmation that stretches across screens and miles and circumstances, that reminds every woman watching that her worth is non-negotiable, her strength is immense, and her future is bright with possibility. Because here's the truth they don't tell you about betrayal. It can either break you or make you. It can either destroy you or reveal the invincible core of who you are. And my darling sisters, we are not breakable. We are forces of nature. We are the phoenixes rising from the ashes of our old lives, our wings strengthened by the fire, our songs made more beautiful by the pain, our flight made more powerful by the fall. Your new chapter is waiting. The blank page is before you. The pen is in your hand. Turn the page, my sister. Turn the page and begin. The morning after discovery feels different than any morning that came before. It's not just the lack of sleep or the puffy eyes from crying. It's the fundamental shift in reality, the way the world now exists in two distinct categories, before you knew and after. I woke up that second day to the sound of Mark's breathing beside me. Steady, untroubled, the breathing of a man who had no idea his secret world had been breached. The morning light sliced through the gaps in our bedroom curtains, illuminating dust particles dancing in the air like tiny lies floating between us. My first thought wasn't about the messages or the other woman. My first thought was about time. How many mornings had I woken up like this, blissfully ignorant, while he lived a parallel life? How many cups of coffee had I poured? How many school lunches had I packed? How many good morning kisses had I given? All while this other reality existed just beneath the surface of our ordinary days. I slipped out of bed carefully, my body moving with a strange new purpose. The hardwood floor felt cold beneath my feet, a grounding sensation that reminded me I was still here, still breathing, still capable of movement even if my heart felt shattered into a million pieces. In the bathroom, I studied my reflection in the mirror. The same face I'd seen every morning for 35 years, but now it felt like looking at a stranger. Were there signs I'd missed? Was there something in my eyes that should have known? The woman staring back at me had laugh lines around her eyes from 12 years of marriage, but now those lines felt like etchings of foolish trust rather than happiness. The investigation began not with dramatic gestures, but with small, calculated movements. While Mark showered, I took his phone from the charger again. My hands didn't shake this time. There was a new steadiness in me, a cold determination that felt both unfamiliar and necessary. I scrolled through months of messages with Chloe, my heart hardening with each new discovery. There were photos of them together, at restaurants I'd never been to, in parts of the city I didn't recognize, in moments stolen from our life together. There were dates that corresponded with business trips, with late nights at the office, with family events he'd missed claiming work emergencies. But it wasn't just Chloe. As I dug deeper, I found others. Sarah from his marketing department, Jessica from his gym, Maria from... I didn't even know where Maria fit in. The patterns emerged like ugly stains on the fabric of our marriage. The business trips that weren't business trips. The late nights that weren't work-related. The sudden emergencies that pulled him away from family events. The new hobbies that didn't include me. The password changes he explained as company security updates. I started taking pictures of everything with my own phone. Each screenshot felt like collecting evidence in a crime I didn't know was being committed against me. The digital trail became my map to a world I never knew existed. A world where my husband was someone completely different from the man I thought I married. When I heard the shower turn off, I quickly returned his phone to its charger, my movements smooth and silent. I was already learning the rhythm of this new dance, the steps of deception required to uncover deception. At breakfast, I watched him with new eyes. The way he scrolled through his phone while eating the eggs I'd cooked him. The casual way he kissed my forehead before leaving for work. The easy smile he gave our daughters as they chattered about their day ahead. It all felt like a performance now, and I was the audience member who'd suddenly seen behind the curtain. After he left, the house felt different. The silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It was heavy with secrets. I walked through rooms we'd decorated together, past photos we'd framed with care, around furniture we'd chosen while holding hands and dreaming of our future. Every object now had two meanings, the beautiful memory attached to it, and the ugly truth hiding beneath. I called in sick to work, the first lie in my new double life. Then I began my real work for the day. The first step was financial. I logged into our joint accounts, something I rarely did because Mark had always handled the finances. "You have enough to worry about with the girls and your job," he'd always said. "Let me take care of this for us." Now those words felt like another form of control, another way to keep me in the dark. What I found made my stomach twist. Unexplained charges at hotels I'd never heard of. Expensive restaurant bills for dates that weren't with me. Jewelry store purchases for items I'd never received. Cash withdrawals that corresponded with nights he'd claimed to be working late. I started a secret spreadsheet, documenting every suspicious transaction. The numbers told a story of their own. A story of fancy dinners I wasn't invited to, of gifts I never received, of hotel rooms I never slept in. The financial infidelity felt almost as painful as the emotional betrayal. Next came the digital footprint. I created new email accounts with passwords he would never guess. I learned how to check his location history, how to access old text messages through our phone carrier, how to trace the digital breadcrumbs he'd left scattered across the internet. Each new discovery felt like another piece of my heart breaking off and floating away. But with each broken piece, something new was growing in its place. A fierce determination, a clear-eyed understanding, a strength I didn't know I possessed. The hardest moment came when I decided to look at her social media. Chloe. Just typing her name felt like swallowing glass. Her profiles were public, filled with photos of a life that mirrored mine in terrifying ways. There she was, smiling in places I recognized, the park where we had family picnics, the theater where we saw anniversary shows, even the coffee shop where Mark and I had our weekly date mornings. But in her photos, she was with him. His arm around her waist in front of the fountain we'd toss coins into. His smile directed at her across a table at our favorite restaurant. His hand holding hers during a sunset I'd watched alone from our backyard. The most devastating photo was one she'd posted 2 weeks earlier. Mark kissing her forehead in the exact same way he kissed mine. The same tilt of his head, the same gentle curve of his smile, the same look in his eyes that I'd believed was reserved only for me. I closed the laptop, my breath catching in my throat. The physical pain of betrayal is something nobody warns you about. How it actually hurts, like a weight pressing on your chest, making it hard to breathe, hard to think, hard to remember who you were before this moment. But then I heard my daughters laughing in the next room, their innocent joy cutting through my pain like sunlight through storm clouds. And I remembered why I was doing this. why I was putting myself through this torture of discovery. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about winning him back. It wasn't even about the marriage anymore. It was about truth. It was about rebuilding my life on a foundation of reality rather than lies. It was about showing my daughters what it means to stand up for yourself, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. That afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in years. I called my older sister. The phone rang 3 times before she answered, her voice warm with concern when she heard the tears I was trying to hide. "Amara? What's wrong?" And I told her. I told her everything. The messages, the photos, the financial records, the other women. I spoke the words aloud for the first time, giving voice to the nightmare that had become my reality. There was silence on the other end for a long moment. Then in that firm, no-nonsense tone only big sisters can master, she said, "Okay. First, breathe. Second, listen to me carefully. This is not your fault. Third, I'm on my way over. Don't do anything until I get there." While I waited for her, I packed a go-bag for myself and the girls. Just the essentials, clothes, important documents, the emergency cash I'd been stashing away for years without really knowing why. I hid it in the trunk of my car, under the spare tire where Mark would never look. When my sister arrived, she didn't hug me immediately. She looked me straight in the eyes, her hands on my shoulders, and said the words I didn't know I needed to hear. "I see you, Amara. I see your strength. And I'm going to help you remember who you are." We spent the afternoon making plans. Practical, concrete plans that had nothing to do with emotions and everything to do with survival. She helped me find a lawyer, a fierce woman who specialized in cases like mine. She helped me open a separate bank account. She helped me start documenting everything in a way that would hold up in court. But the most important thing she gave me wasn't practical advice. It was perspective. "Remember when we were kids?" she said as we sat at my kitchen table. The same table where I'd first seen the messages that shattered my world. "Remember how you used to stand up to bullies on the playground? How you'd protect the younger kids even when you were scared?" I nodded, the memory feeling like it belonged to someone else. "That's who you are, Amara. That's who you've always been. This situation, it's just a bigger playground with a more sophisticated bully. But you're still the same girl who knows how to fight for what's right." When Mark came home that evening, I was different. I wasn't the broken woman from the morning. I wasn't the shocked wife from the day before. I was a strategist, a planner, a woman who knew exactly what she was dealing with and exactly what she needed to do. He noticed the change immediately. "You seem different today," he said over dinner, his eyes searching my face for clues. I met his gaze steadily, the first time I'd been able to look him directly in the eyes since discovering the truth. "I am different," I said, and let the words hang in the air between us, a warning and a promise all at once. That night, after he fell asleep, I lay awake making mental lists of everything I still needed to do. Get copies of all our financial documents. Secure the girls' passports. Document the value of our assets. Find a place to stay when I finally left. But the most important item on my list wasn't practical. It was personal. Remember who I am. Remember my worth. Remember that his choices reflect his character, not my value. The investigation was no longer just about uncovering his secrets. It was about rediscovering myself. Each piece of evidence I collected was also a piece of my own power I reclaimed. Each truth I uncovered was also a lie about myself I released. I was no longer the clueless wife. I was the archaeologist of my own life, carefully brushing away the dust of deception to uncover the solid foundation of who I really was beneath the rubble of my marriage. And what I was beginning to discover was both terrifying and exhilarating. I liked the woman I was finding. She was stronger than I'd ever imagined. She was smarter than I'd given her credit for. She was worth fighting for. The investigation had begun as a mission to uncover his truth. But somewhere along the way, it had become a journey to discover my own. And that, I was beginning to understand, was the real point of all this. Not to prove he was a liar, but to prove to myself that I was worth telling the truth to. 1 week into the investigation, and I had become a master of duality. By day, the devoted wife and mother, packing lunches, attending PTA meetings, smiling at neighborhood barbecues. By night, The digital detective tracing patterns of deception through the glowing screens that illuminated my midnight hours. The transformation wasn't gradual. It was instantaneous. The moment I decided to see the truth, my eyes opened to a world of clues I've been walking past for years. It was like putting on glasses for the first time and realizing everything had been blurry. It started with the credit card statements I found buried in his office, the ones he thought I didn't know about. The Amex Platinum card he'd gotten for business expenses had charges that told a story far more personal than professional. $450 at La Belle Fleur on February 14th. Our anniversary was February 16th. He'd given me a $50 bouquet from the grocery store, apologizing that work had been too busy for him to do better. I told him it was perfect, that it was the thought that counted. $1,200 at the Silver Dove jewelry store in March. My birthday was in April. He'd given me a silver necklace with our daughter's birthstones, telling me he wanted me to always carry them close to my heart. I'd cried happy tears, touched by his thoughtfulness. Now I wondered who the real jewelry was for. $650 at Chez Antoine in May. He'd told me he was working through dinner that night. I'd eaten leftover pasta with the girls, wondering if I should save him a plate. Each receipt was a time-stamped betrayal. Each transaction was a memory rewritten with ugly new meaning. I photographed them all, my hands steady, my heart protected by the armor of purpose. But the financial trail was only the beginning. The digital footprint led me down darker paths, into corners of his life I never knew existed. It was a Thursday night when I found the second phone. Mark was working late, or so he said. The girls were asleep, the house was quiet, and I was going through his home office with a methodical precision that would have scared me if I'd stopped to think about it. The bottom drawer of his desk was locked. This in itself wasn't suspicious. He'd always kept it locked, telling me it contained sensitive work documents. But tonight, I noticed something different. The key wasn't in its usual spot in the ceramic bowl on his dresser. Something clicked in my mind, a memory from months ago. Mark joking about hiding spare keys in obvious places because nobody ever looks there. It's like hiding in plain sight, he'd said with that charming smile that now felt like a weapon. I went to the bookshelf in our living room, to the complete works of Shakespeare he'd inherited from his grandfather and never opened. I slipped my fingers behind the thick volume of Hamlet, and there it was, a small silver key. My hands trembled as I returned to the office. The key turned smoothly in the lock. The drawer opened with a soft click that echoed in the silent house. Inside, I found what I'd expected: financial documents, insurance papers, the mundane paperwork of adult life. But beneath them, wrapped in a soft black cloth, was another smartphone. Slim, expensive, password protected. My first thought was practical, how to unlock it. My second thought was emotional. What new horrors would it reveal? Took me 3 days to crack the password. 3 days of watching him, studying his patterns, remembering the numbers he used for everything. His mother's birthday, our anniversary, the girls' birthdays, all combinations I tried without success. Then I remembered something he'd said years ago when we were first dating. I used the date we met for everything important, he told me. August 17, 2009. 08172009. My fingers shook as I entered the numbers. The phone unlocked. The world tilted. This wasn't just a phone. It was a portal to his secret life. No contacts saved, just numbers. No names, just initials. Photos that made my stomach clench. Messages that made me physically ill. Z. Chloe. S. Sarah. J. Jessica. Maria. And others, so many others. A rotating cast of women spanning years. Some overlapping, some sequential, all existing in the parallel universe he'd built alongside our marriage. The timeline stretched back further than I'd imagined. The first messages with C dated back 3 years. 3 years. Our youngest daughter was 4. She'd been barely walking when this started. I scrolled through photo after photo. Mark at baseball games with a blonde woman who wasn't me. Mark hiking with a brunette I didn't recognize. Mark at fancy restaurants, on beach vacations, in hotel rooms, always with different women, always smiling that same smile I thought was mine alone. But the worst discovery was yet to come. Hidden in a secure folder, Protected by another password, our wedding date, because the irony was clearly lost on him, I found the videos. Short clips mostly. Intimate moments recorded without the women's knowledge. Private conversations. Vulnerable admissions. He was documenting his conquests like trophies, collecting moments of intimacy as if they were baseball cards. My stomach heaved. I barely made it to the bathroom before vomiting, the physical reaction to the emotional poison I'd ingested. When the sickness passed, I sat on the cold bathroom floor, hugging my knees to my chest, rocking back and forth as if I could comfort myself into feeling safe again. But safety was an illusion. The man I'd built my life with was a stranger. The foundation of my world was sand. The investigation was no longer about gathering evidence for a divorce. It was about understanding the scope of the deception. It was about protecting myself from whatever else might be lurking in the shadows. I started digging deeper into the financial records. If he had a second phone, what else did he have? Second bank accounts? Second credit cards? Second life? It took me most of the night, but I found them. 3 bank accounts I never knew existed. 2 under his name, 1 under a business name I didn't recognize. The balances made me gasp. Tens of thousands of dollars siphoned from our joint accounts over the years. Business investments. He told me when I'd questioned the large transfers. For our future. Our future. The words tasted like ash. As dawn approached, I made a decision. I needed help. Professional help. This was bigger than I could handle alone. The private investigator's office was in a nondescript building downtown. Maria Rodriguez had been recommended by my lawyer, a former police detective who specialized in infidelity cases. She listened to my story without judgment, her dark eyes missing nothing. When I showed her the evidence I'd collected, the photos, the financial records, the second phone, she nodded slowly. "This is more common than you'd think," she said, her voice calm and professional. "The double life, the secret accounts, the documentation. It's a pattern." She agreed to take the case. Her team would handle the surveillance, the digital forensics, the financial tracing. My job was to maintain normalcy, to keep playing my part while they worked in the background. "Be careful," she warned me as I stood to leave. "Men like your husband. When they feel cornered, they can become dangerous. Don't confront him. Don't let on that you know anything." I nodded, the weight of the situation settling on my shoulders. Dangerous. The word echoed in my mind. Was the man I'd slept beside for 12 years actually dangerous? That evening, watching Mark play with our daughters in the backyard, I tried to reconcile the 2 images, the devoted father pushing his daughter on the swing, and the man with the secret phone and the hidden accounts. Which one was real? Or were they both real? Could a person contain such contradictions? The investigation was changing me in ways I hadn't anticipated. I was becoming more observant, more analytical, less trusting. I noticed the small inconsistencies in his stories, the slight pauses before he answered questions, the way his eyes shifted when he lied. I was also becoming angrier. Not the hot, explosive anger I'd expected, but a cold, simmering rage that fueled my determination. Every time I discovered a new lie, every time I uncovered another betrayal, the anger grew, but so did my resolve. One night, while going through old emails I'd archived from our shared account, I found something that made the blood run cold in my veins. An email from 2 years ago from a woman named Elena. The subject line, "Please leave me alone." The message was brief, desperate. "I know you're married. I know about your wife and daughters. If you contact me again, I'll tell her everything. Stay away from me." Mark's response was cold, threatening. "Be careful what you threaten, Elena. You have no idea what I'm capable of. Leave this alone if you know what's good for you." I sat back, my heart pounding. This wasn't just infidelity. This was something darker, more sinister. The man in this email wasn't just a cheater, he was a predator. I forwarded the exchange to Maria, my hands shaking. "Look into this," I wrote in the accompanying message. "Find Elena. Make sure she's okay." The web was widening, stretching beyond infidelity into territory that scared me. How many women had there been? How many had tried to end things? How many had been threatened? That weekend, I took the girls to my sister's house for a fun aunt weekend. I needed space to think, to process, to plan. While the girls played in the backyard, I sat with my sister at her kitchen table and told her everything I discovered. The second phone, the hidden accounts, the threatening email. She listened, her face growing pale. When I finished, she reached across the table and took my hands. Amara, you can't stay in that house. It's not safe. I know, I whispered, but I need more time. I need to understand what I'm dealing with. Understanding won't make it less dangerous, she said, her voice tight with worry. This man. This isn't the Mark we know. This is someone else entirely. She was right. The man I'd married was a fiction. A character played by someone I didn't recognize. The investigation had started as a quest for truth, but it had become a survival mission. That night, back in my own bed, lying beside the stranger I'd called my husband, I made a decision. I would give Maria and her team 2 more weeks. Then, regardless of what they found, I would leave. I would take my daughters and we would disappear into the safety of my sister's home. The investigation was no longer about saving my marriage or even about getting justice. It was about survival. It was about protecting my daughters from the man their father had become. It was about ensuring that we had a future. A safe future built on truth rather than lies. As I lay awake listening to Mark's steady breathing, I realized something fundamental had shifted in me. The scared, betrayed wife was gone. In her place was a mother, a protector, a warrior. The web of deception he'd woven was extensive, but I was untangling it thread by thread. And with each thread I pulled, his secret world unraveled a little more, while my real world grew stronger, more solid, more true. I was no longer investigating his lies. I was building my truth. And nothing, not his deception, not his threats, not my fear, was going to stop me. 2 weeks into the investigation, and the pieces were beginning to form a pattern more disturbing than I could have imagined. It was no longer about individual betrayals, but about a system of deception so elaborate it felt like I was unraveling a criminal enterprise rather than a marriage. Maria Rodriguez called me on a rainy Tuesday morning. Amara, we need to talk. In person. Somewhere safe. We met at a public library 20 miles from our neighborhood. In the genealogy section where elderly researchers traced family histories, unaware that I was there to uncover how my own family history had been rewritten by lies. Maria arrived carrying a plain manila folder, her expression grim. I'm going to show you something, she said without preamble. It's going to be difficult to see, but you need to understand what we're dealing with. She opened the folder to reveal a timeline, color-coded, detailed, spanning 7 years. Different colored lines represented different women, weaving in and out of our marriage like threads in a tapestry of betrayal. The scale took my breath away. There weren't just 4 or 5 women. There were 17. 17 that we knew of. Some lasted months, others years. Some overlapped with chilling precision. Look at the pattern, Maria said, her finger tracing the lines. He rotates them in 3-month cycles. Some he keeps longer, the ones who are more compliant. Compliant. The word made me shudder. Notice anything about the timing? She asked. I studied the chart, my analytical mind, the one I'd used in my marketing career before becoming a mother, kicking into gear. The affairs always intensified during stressful periods in our marriage. When I was pregnant with our second daughter, when my mother was diagnosed with cancer, when I was struggling with postpartum depression. He uses stress as cover, I said slowly, the realization dawning. The more overwhelmed I am, the more he can get away with. Maria nodded. Exactly. And look here. She pointed to financial markers. Every time he starts with a new woman, there's a spike in spending. Jewelry, hotels, expensive dinners. It's like a courtship pattern. But the most disturbing discovery came next. We've identified 12 of the women, Maria said, pulling out another document. We've been able to speak with 3 of them. My stomach clenched. And they all tell similar stories. The romance moves fast, love bombing they call it. Then when they get too close or start asking too many questions, he becomes different. Different how? Maria's eyes met mine. Controlling. Manipulative. Threatening. She handed me transcribed interviews. I read them with growing horror. Elena, 28. When I told him I was pregnant, he threatened to ruin my career if I didn't get an abortion. He said nobody would believe me over him. Sarah, 31. He told me his wife was abusive, that she kept him trapped in the marriage. He said I was his escape. Jessica, 29. When I tried to break it off, he showed up at my workplace. He knew things about me, private things. He'd been digging into my background. I pushed the papers away, my hands trembling. He was investigating them? More than investigating, Maria said quietly. He was gathering compromising information, photos, personal details, vulnerabilities, insurance in case they ever thought about exposing him. The room spun around me. This wasn't just infidelity. This was predation. This was a systematic operation designed to use and discard women while protecting himself. There's more, Maria said, her voice gentle but firm. We found something you need to see. She slid a USB drive across the table. This is from his cloud storage. He thought it was hidden, but our tech specialist found it. That evening, after putting the girls to bed, I plugged the drive into my laptop. What I found made everything before seem trivial. Folders. Dozens of them, meticulously organized by name and date. Each contained photos, messages, personal information about the women. But worse, much worse, were the documents he'd collected on me. My medical records from therapy sessions during my postpartum depression. Copies of emails I'd sent to friends complaining about our marriage. Financial documents showing my spending habits. Even recordings of our arguments. He'd been recording me for years. The most chilling folder was labeled contingency. Inside were documents laying the groundwork to paint me as an unfit mother, carefully edited video clips of me losing my temper with the girls, financial records showing irresponsible spending, even notes from my therapist taken out of context to suggest mental instability. He wasn't just cheating. He was building a case against me, preparing for a custody battle he intended to win. I stumbled to the bathroom, dry heaving over the toilet. The betrayal was so complete, so calculated. It felt like my soul had been physically violated. When I could breathe again, I looked at my reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back had tears streaming down her face, but her eyes were different. The last remnants of hope, of love, of whatever softness I'd still harbored for him, they were gone, replaced by something cold and clear and determined. That night I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table with a notebook and began mapping my own strategy. If he was preparing for war, I would be ready. The pattern of his behavior was becoming clear now. He targeted vulnerable women, those new to the city, going through divorces, struggling with careers. He love-bombed them into dependency, then manipulated them into silence. And he documented everything to protect himself. But understanding the pattern gave me power. I could anticipate his moves. I could protect myself. I could fight back. Over the next few days, I worked with Maria to identify all the women we could find. We reached out to them carefully through secure channels, offering support and protection. Some were too scared to talk. Others were angry and ready to help. We built our own network, a sisterhood of survivors who had been manipulated by the same man. We shared information, compared stories, built a case that was bigger than any of us could have managed alone. The picture that emerged was of a man who saw women as objects to be collected, used, and discarded. A man who derived power from deception. A man who had never loved me because he was incapable of loving anyone. The realization should have devastated me. Instead, it freed me. I wasn't losing a loving husband. I was escaping a predator. I wasn't failing at marriage. I was surviving a nightmare. One afternoon, while the girls were at a playdate, I went to see my lawyer again. I showed her everything we'd collected. She listened, took notes, and when I finished, she looked at me with something like respect. "This changes everything," she said. "With this evidence, we're not just talking about divorce. We're talking about criminal behavior, harassment, threats, possibly worse." Worse. I asked, my throat tight. She leaned forward. "Amara, has he ever been physically violent with you?" I started to say no, then stopped. The memory surfaced like a ghost from the depths. A night about 2 years ago, when I'd confronted him about coming home late. He'd grabbed my arm hard enough to leave bruises. He'd apologized the next day, blamed it on stress and alcohol. I believed him. I showed her the faint scars that remained. Once, I whispered. She made a note. We need to get you and your daughters out. Now, not in 2 weeks. Today. But I shook my head. Not yet. There's one more thing I need to do. I needed to understand why. Not for him, for me. I needed to know what brokenness inside him made this necessary. What emptiness required so many lies to fill it. That weekend, while Mark was golfing with friends, or whatever he actually did on these outings, I went through his childhood things stored in the basement. Boxes of old photos, school projects, letters. And there, buried beneath yearbooks and sports trophies, I found it. A diary from his teenage years. The lock was cheap, easily broken. The pages revealed a lonely boy, bullied in school, desperate for approval. A young man who learned to create different versions of himself to please different people. A pattern that started long before he met me. He wrote about his first girlfriend. She thinks I'm the person I show her. If she knew the real me, she'd run away. Another entry. I told Mr. Johnson what he wanted to hear and got the promotion. Dad would be proud. Nobody knows what I really think. And the most chilling. The power is in knowing their secrets while keeping your own. That's how you stay safe. That's how you control things. I closed the diary, my hands shaking. This wasn't an excuse for his behavior, but it was an explanation. He'd been building false selves his entire life. Our marriage was just another role he played. The pattern was complete now. The scared boy became the manipulative man. The small deceptions became elaborate double lives. The need for control became a pathology. That night, when Mark came home, I watched him with new understanding. The charm, the confidence, the easy smiles, they were all armor protecting the terrified boy in the basement diary. The man I'd loved didn't exist. He was a collection of performances designed to get what he wanted. The realization brought me a strange peace. This wasn't about me not being enough. This was about him being broken in ways I couldn't fix. Ways nobody could fix. As I lay in bed that night, listening to his breathing, I made my final plan. I would give Maria one more week to gather what she needed. Then I would take my daughters and we would leave. But I wouldn't be running away in fear. I would be walking away with understanding, with evidence, with a network of women ready to support each other, with a truth so solid nothing could shake it. The pattern of his deception was clear now, but I was creating my own pattern, one of truth, of strength, of survival, one that would protect me and my daughters for the rest of our lives. The investigation had shown me the worst of humanity, but it had also shown me the best, in my sister, in Maria, in the women who bravely shared their stories, in my own resilience. The web of lies was extensive, but truth was stronger, and I was about to prove it. Planning an escape from your own life requires a particular kind of madness. Not the frantic, desperate kind, but the cold, calculated madness of someone who has stared into the abyss and decided to build a bridge across it. 2 days after discovering Mark's contingency plan against me, I began building my own. Not to destroy him, though part of me wanted to, but to protect what mattered, my daughters, my freedom, my future. The first step was securing a safe place. My sister's house was temporary shelter, but we needed somewhere he wouldn't think to look. Through Maria's network, I found a women's shelter that offered transitional housing for mothers leaving dangerous situations. They had a secure apartment available in 3 weeks, just enough time to prepare. But you need to understand, the shelter director told me during our encrypted video call, her face kind but serious. Once you come here, you follow our protocols. No contact with him. Limited outside communication. We take security very seriously. I understand, I said, and I did. The normal rules no longer applied. I was entering a world where trust was earned through shared survival, where safety mattered more than comfort. Next came the money. Over the years, I'd maintained a small freelance graphic design business, mostly for pocket money, but now it became my financial lifeline. I reached out to old clients, took on emergency projects, worked through the nights while Mark slept beside me, unaware that each design I created was another brick in my escape route. I opened accounts at 3 different banks under my maiden name, spreading the money in amounts small enough not to trigger alerts. Cash became my preferred currency. withdrawn in small increments from grocery store ATMs, stored in books, hidden in tampon boxes, sewn into coat linings. Every dollar felt like a piece of my freedom, but money and housing were the easy parts. The real challenge was extracting our lives from his without him noticing. Our joint accounts, shared assets, intertwined histories. Unraveling 12 years of marriage required surgical precision. Maria helped me create a timeline and checklist. Week 1 documentation. Secure all birth certificates, passports, social security cards. Make copies of financial records. Document the current state of the house with photos. Back up all evidence to multiple secure locations. Week 2, financial separation. Gradually transfer essential funds to new accounts. Remove my name from minor joint accounts. Freeze my credit to prevent sabotage. Establish separate utilities at the new address. Week 3, the extraction. Pack essential items gradually. Secure important sentimental items. Prepare the girls psychologically. Execute the exit strategy. The plan was thorough, but life has a way of complicating even the most careful preparations. The first complication came from an unexpected direction. Our oldest daughter, Maya. At 7 years old, she was perceptive in ways children often are. Noticing everything, understanding just enough to be worried. "Mommy," she asked one evening while I was helping with homework, "why are you always sad now?" The question stopped me cold. I thought I was hiding it so well. The smiles during breakfast, the cheerful tone during bedtime stories, the normal mom routine. But children see through performances better than anyone. "I'm just tired, baby," I said, smoothing her hair. She looked at me with those serious eyes that saw too much. "Is Daddy making you sad?" The directness of the question stole my breath. How much had she seen? What had she overheard? "Sometimes grown-ups have complicated feelings," I said carefully. "But Mommy's okay. I promise." She studied my face for a long moment, then nodded, apparently satisfied. But the exchange haunted me. However careful I was being with Mark, I needed to be even more careful with my daughters. They were both the reason I was leaving and the most vulnerable part of the equation. The second complication came from Mark himself. As if sensing the shifting ground beneath our marriage, he began what I now recognized as his charm offensive, the same pattern Maria had identified in his relationships with other women. He started bringing me flowers, not the grocery store bouquets he usually grabbed, but elaborate arrangements from expensive florists. He suggested date nights at restaurants we hadn't visited in years. He initiated intimacy with an urgency that felt desperate rather than loving. It was the love-bombing phase, but this time I could see the mechanics behind it. The calculated compliments, the strategic vulnerability, the performance of remorse for things he hadn't even been caught doing yet. "Are you happy, Amara?" he asked one night over dinner at a fancy Italian restaurant, the same one where he'd taken Chloe according to the credit card receipts. The question was so loaded I almost laughed. Happy? I was planning my escape from a man who'd been documenting my every flaw for years. I was gathering evidence against the father of my children. I was learning that my entire marriage had been a beautifully decorated prison. "I'm fine," I said, taking a sip of wine that tasted like ashes. He reached across the table, his hand covering mine. "I feel like we've been distant lately. I want to fix that." The irony was so thick I could barely breathe. He wanted to fix the distance created by his 17 affairs. He wanted to repair the trust he'd systematically destroyed for years. He wanted to reconnect with a wife he'd been preparing to destroy in court. "I think we're fine," I said, withdrawing my hand under the pretense of reaching for my napkin. His smile tightened, and I saw a flash of something in his eyes. Not hurt, but frustration. The performance wasn't working, and he didn't like it. That night, I lay awake long after he fell asleep, mentally reviewing my escape checklist. We were in week 2 financial separation. I'd successfully transferred enough money to support us for 6 months. I'd removed my name from 2 minor joint accounts. I'd frozen my credit, but I was starting to feel the strain of the double life. The constant vigilance was exhausting. The smiling lies were becoming harder to force. The weight of what I knew was crushing me. The breaking point came on a Thursday morning. I was in the basement, carefully packing a box of the girls' winter clothes to donate. actually to store at my sister's house when I found it. Another phone. This one cheap, disposable, hidden inside a box of Christmas decorations. My hands trembled as I turned it on. The battery was dead, but the charger was nearby, hidden in the same box. I plugged it in, my heart pounding. When it powered up, there was only one number saved. A number I recognized instantly, our nanny Gabriella. Sweet, young Gabriella who'd been with us for 2 years, who my daughters adored, who I'd trusted completely. The messages made me physically ill. Graphic, explicit, degrading. Photos that made me want to scrub my eyes clean. And dates, so many dates spanning the entire time she'd worked for us. The betrayal was so complete, so violating, it felt different from all the others. This wasn't just cheating. This was bringing the poison into our home, near our children, using the trust I'd placed in someone to care for my daughters as cover for his affairs. I stumbled up the basement stairs, my vision blurring with tears of rage. In the kitchen, I found Gabriella helping Maya with breakfast, smiling innocently as if she hadn't been sleeping with my husband in our bed while I was at PTA meetings. "Gabriella," I said, my voice dangerously calm, "could you give us a moment? Take Lily to the playroom." She looked surprised but complied, shooting me a curious glance as she led our younger daughter away. When we were alone, I turned to Maya. "Baby, I need you to be very brave and help Mommy with something." Her eyes widened, but she nodded seriously. "I need you to go to your room and pack your special bag, the one we practice with. Just the most important things, okay? And keep it hidden under your bed." "The emergency bag?" she whispered, her face pale. "Yes, sweetheart. The emergency bag." She didn't ask questions, just slipped from her chair and hurried upstairs. My brave girl, already learning that sometimes emergencies look like ordinary Thursday mornings. I waited until I heard her bedroom door close. Then I walked to the playroom where Gabriella was building blocks with Lily. "Gabriella," I said, my voice cold, "your services are no longer required. I'll pay you through the end of the month, but I want you to leave. Now." Her face went through a rapid series of emotions: surprise, guilt, defiance. "What? Why? Did Mark say something?" The use of his first name, the familiarity, it confirmed everything. "I know everything," I said quietly, my eyes locked on hers. "And if you ever come near my family again, I will make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person you are." She stared at me, her mouth working soundlessly for a moment before she gathered her things and fled. When she was gone, I sank to the floor, trembling with adrenaline and rage. Lily crawled into my lap, her little face worried. "It's okay, baby," I whispered, holding her close. "Mommy's just making things safe for us." But safe felt very far away. The discovery changed everything. If he'd brought his affairs into our home, if he'd involved someone who had access to our children, then the danger was more immediate than I'd realized. I called Maria from the bathroom, the water running to cover my voice. "We need to move the timeline up," I said when she answered. "He's involved the nanny. It's not safe here anymore." She was silent for a moment. "How soon can you be ready?" "2 days," I said, the words feeling both terrifying and liberating. "I need 2 days to get the final things in place." "Okay," she said. "I'll have a team watching the house starting tonight. If anything seems wrong, you call me immediately and we extract you." After we hung up, I looked at my reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back was pale but determined. The time for careful planning was over. The time for action had arrived. Over the next 48 hours, I moved with a focus I didn't know I possessed. I packed essentials, documents, medications, the girls' favorite stuffed animals, the jewelry my grandmother had left me. I transferred the final funds. I sent the most important evidence to multiple secure locations. I also did something I hadn't planned on. I wrote letters to my daughters, one for each of them, to be opened when they were older, explaining why I'd made the choices I had, trying to capture the impossible complexity of leaving their father to protect them from him. On the final night, after putting the girls to bed, I stood in the doorway of Mark's office and watched him work. He was typing something, his face illuminated by the computer screen, completely unaware that his world was about to collapse. For a moment, I felt a pang of something like grief, not for him but for the man I'd thought he was. for the future I believed we were building, for the love I genuinely felt, even if it had been based on lies. Then I remembered the messages with Gabriella, the photos, the threats to other women, the contingency plan painting me as an unfit mother. The grief hardened into resolve. I went to bed that night and didn't sleep. Instead, I lay there making mental lists, running through scenarios, preparing for every possible outcome. The escape plan was set. The bags were packed and hidden. The money was secured. The safe house was waiting. The evidence was documented. The network was ready. In the morning, while Mark was at his weekly basketball game, we would leave. My sister would pick us up. Maria's team would provide surveillance. We would disappear into a new life. A harder life, but an honest one. As dawn approached, I got up and dressed in the dark. I woke the girls quietly, helping them into the clothes I'd laid out. We moved through the sleeping house like ghosts, not speaking, not looking back. In the garage, as I loaded the final bag into the car, Maya looked at me with those two wise eyes. "Are we running away, Mommy?" I knelt down, taking her small hands in mine. "No, baby," I said softly. "We're running toward safety, toward truth, toward a life where we don't have to be afraid anymore." She nodded, accepting this with the simple wisdom of children. "Okay, Mommy, I'm ready." I looked at my daughters, my reasons for everything, and felt a surge of protective love so fierce it stole my breath. The escape plan wasn't just about leaving. It was about arriving somewhere new, somewhere we could finally be free. We got in the car. I took one last look at the house that had been our home, our prison, our beautiful lie. Then I started the engine, and we drove away toward the dawn. The first morning of freedom tastes different. It doesn't taste like victory or relief. Not yet. It tastes like the sharp, clean air after a storm has passed. Like the first sip of water after a long thirst. Like possibility raw and unformed. We woke in the safe house apartment. A small, sparsely furnished space with beige walls and industrial carpeting that had never felt more beautiful. The girls were curled together on the pull-out couch, their breathing soft and even. The morning light filtered through the blinds, painting stripes of gold across their peaceful faces. For the first time in months, I hadn't slept with one eye open. For the first time in years, I hadn't woken up with a knot of dread in my stomach. The silence wasn't heavy with secrets anymore. It was peaceful. It was ours. I moved quietly to the small kitchen and started coffee, my movements slow, deliberate. Each ordinary action felt sacred now. Measuring the grounds, pouring the water, waiting for the brew. These simple rituals of a normal morning felt like miracles. While the coffee dripped, I checked my phone. Dozens of missed calls from Mark. Angry texts escalating from confusion to threats. My lawyer had served him with the divorce papers and temporary restraining order yesterday afternoon, while we were driving away from our old life. The messages were exactly what Maria had predicted. "Where are you? What the hell is this about? You can't keep my daughters from me. You'll regret this, Amara." I felt nothing. The fear that had controlled me for so long had burned away in the fire of truth. The love that had blinded me had been replaced by clear-eyed understanding. The woman who would have trembled at those messages was gone. In her place stood someone new. My sister had arrived with groceries while we slept, leaving a note on the counter. "The brave deserve breakfast. Love you." I made pancakes, the girls' favorite, and the ordinary domesticity of it felt revolutionary. When Maya and Lily woke, they padded into the kitchen, their eyes wide at the unfamiliar surroundings. But children are resilient in ways adults forget how to be. Within minutes, they were chattering about the pancakes, about the view from our third-floor window, about the adventure of living somewhere new. "Are we going to live here forever?" Lily asked, syrup dripping down her chin. "For a little while," I said, smoothing her hair. "Until we find our new home." "Our home without Daddy?" Maya asked quietly. I took a deep breath. This was the conversation I'd been preparing for. "Yes, baby. Without Daddy. But you'll still see him when it's safe." "He made you sad," Maya said, her little face serious. "I don't like it when you're sad." Tears pricked my eyes, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of awe at my daughter's wisdom. "You're right, sweetheart. And Mommy's going to make sure we're all happy now." After breakfast, while the girls colored at the small table, I called my lawyer. He's furious, she told me. But he's also scared. We have him, Amara. The evidence you collected. It's overwhelming. We went over the next steps. The custody evaluation. The financial disclosures. The criminal complaints Maria was filing with the police on behalf of the other women. The network we'd built was stronger than any one of us could have been alone. He's already trying to paint you as unstable, my lawyer said, claiming you've had mental health issues. I expected that, I said calmly. I have documentation from my therapist showing I was being treated for situational depression caused by his infidelity. And we have the recordings of him threatening other women. There was a pause on the other end. You're handling this remarkably well. What's the alternative? I asked softly. Falling apart isn't a luxury I have anymore. After the call, I sat by the window, watching the ordinary morning unfold below. People heading to work. Parents walking children to school. The simple, beautiful rhythm of lives being lived in truth. In that moment, I understood something fundamental. Freedom isn't about where you live or who you're with. It's about no longer living in fear of the truth. It's about standing in your own light, even when that light reveals things you wish you hadn't seen. The days that followed were a study in contrasts. The practical matters were stressful. Court dates, lawyer meetings, financial negotiations. But the emotional space we inhabited was peaceful in a way our beautiful house had never been. The girls started at a new school. I began rebuilding my design business. We established routines built around truth rather than deception. Pizza on Fridays. Library visits on Saturdays. Sunday mornings spent exploring our new neighborhood. There were hard moments, of course. Nights when the girls cried for their father. Days when the legal battles felt overwhelming. Moments when I wondered if I'd made the right choice. But then I'd remember the second phone. The 17 women. The contingency plan. The nanny. And I knew there had been no other choice. 6 weeks after we left, something remarkable happened. I was hanging the girls' artwork on our bare refrigerator when I realized I was humming. Not the tense, absent-minded humming of someone going through motions, but the genuine, unself-conscious humming of someone at peace. I stopped listening to the sound as if hearing it for the first time. The melody was one my mother used to sing. An old spiritual about overcoming. I hadn't thought of it in years, but my soul remembered. That evening, Maria came to visit, bearing Chinese food and an update. He's settling, she said as we ate at our small table. The criminal investigation has him scared. He's agreeing to most of your terms. I nodded, the news landing without surprise. I'd known he would fold when faced with real consequences. Bullies usually do. There's something else, she said, her expression softening. Elena, the woman he threatened, she wanted me to give you this. She handed me a small handmade card. Inside, in careful script, it read, "Thank you for being brave when I couldn't be. Your courage gave me mine." I held the card, the words blurring through sudden tears. This connection, this solidarity was the real victory. Not the financial settlement, not the custody agreement, but the knowledge that our truth had set other women free too. The final court date arrived on a bright autumn morning. I dressed carefully, a simple navy dress that made me feel strong, capable. My sister came with me, holding my hand during the drive. The courtroom was everything I expected. Cold, formal, intimidating. Mark was already there, flanked by his lawyers. He looked older, diminished somehow. The confidence that had once seemed so attractive now looked like what it was, armor hiding emptiness. Our eyes met across the room. His held anger, but beneath it something else, respect. He knew he'd been outmaneuvered. He knew the game was over. The proceedings were anticlimactic. His lawyers accepted our terms with minimal argument. Full custody for me with supervised visitation for him. The house sold with proceeds split. A settlement that would ensure the girls and I were comfortable. When the judge finalized the divorce, I expected to feel something dramatic, triumph, grief, something. But what I felt was quiet. A sense of completion. Of a chapter finally definitively closed. As we walked out of the courtroom, Mark approached me. His lawyers tried to stop him, but he waved them off. "Amara," he said, his voice low. I turned, waiting. For a long moment he just looked at me, as if seeing me for the first time. You surprised me, he said finally. I surprised myself, I answered truthfully. He nodded, a strange expression on his face, almost like pride. You were always stronger than I gave you credit for. Then he turned and walked away, and I knew I was seeing him for the last time as anything other than my daughter's father. Outside, the autumn sun was warm on my face. My sister hugged me, her tears wet against my cheek. What now? She asked. I looked up at the clear blue sky, at the world that suddenly seemed full of possibility. Now we live, I said. Really live. That night, I tucked my daughters into bed in our small, safe apartment. Their artwork covered the walls. Their favorite books filled the shelves. Their laughter still echoed in the rooms. As I kissed them goodnight, Maya looked up at me, her eyes clear and untroubled. I like our new home, Mommy. It feels happy. Me too, baby, I whispered. Me too. Later, I sat by the window, watching the city lights twinkle in the gathering dark. The investigation was over. The escape was complete. The legal battles were won. But the real work, the living, was just beginning. I thought about the woman I'd been, the one who accepted grocery store flowers as enough, who believed stress was an excuse for absence, who trusted so completely she never thought to verify. I wasn't that woman anymore. The investigation had burned her away in its necessary fire. The escape had forged someone new in its crucible. The new woman knew her worth, understood her strength, recognized truth no matter how well it was disguised. She was someone her daughters could look up to, someone who could build a life on a foundation of reality rather than pretty lies. The journey hadn't been the one I'd planned when I said, I do 12 years ago. It hadn't been the one I'd wanted when I discovered that first text message. But it was the one that had brought me here, to this moment, to this peace, to this truth. And as I sat there in the quiet dark, watching the moon rise over our new beginning, I understood the final, most important truth of all. Some storms don't destroy you. They clear the path for what comes next. Some fires don't consume you. They forge you into something stronger. Some truths don't break you. They set you free. The story wasn't about the betrayal anymore. It was about the redemption. Not about the lies, but about the truth that emerged from them. Not about the man who broke his vows, but about the women who helped each other remember their worth. Our story, mine and my daughter's, was just beginning. And for the first time in a very long time, I couldn't wait to see what happened next.